Visage is a metaphoric game where a man is punished for his cruel crimes back in real world. Crimes that correlate with real life events back in 50s. The game contains a lot of jump scares and a lot of unsettling stories, which are in a way inspired by true stories. Hi folks, I'm R, your narrator. Here's a spoiler warning for any of you who haven't played the game yet. With that said, let's begin. This segment will very briefly recap the story. I have already made a video thoroughly explaining the story, which you can watch by hitting the card above. If you have already done so, and you want to skip the recap, you can do so by going to the time indicated. Dwayne Anderson shoots his family and himself and suddenly wakes up in a purgatory. In this place, which resembles his home, he experiences the miserable lives of the previous residents of this house during mid-1900s. First is Lucy, a child, and her parents. Lucy starts communicating with a monster through TV and radio, which incites Lucy to bite off the head of her birth pet, Pico. This makes her parents to refer her to professionals who prescribe her with syringes. The syringes only make her worse, to the point that she kills herself by ripping off her own jaw in a gruesome scene. The next victim is Dolores and her husband George, who develops several mental disorders. Her disorder makes her become paranoid, feeling that she is being watched through peepholes. Her paranoia causes her to kill her own husband with 7 knives, and eventually hanging herself, due to the guilt of killing her loving husband, who we learn to also had drinking problems. We then skip a tenant by the name of Lewis Taylor, who turns out to have been an employee in the water plant Dwayne was working in. We finally have Rakan, a 20-year-old rugby player who develops scopophobia, fear of being watched and staring. After shooting inside his home, he gets reported by the longtime neighbor, Rose, who also has miserable life as we learn through comics, which I will make a separate video about. Rakan mentions that he's being watched by an eyeless humanoid and an evil organization is trying to control him, which ends up in him breaking his legs after jumping through the hospital's window, with his chapter ending ambiguously as he gets imprisoned inside a room, with a mysterious man closing the door on him.
They're in big trouble now! With everything I know, I'll definitely take them down! You hear me, f***ers? I'm on to you! Hey, what are you doing? Who sent you? Wait! No!
Soon we learn Dwayne was a former scientist involved in a secret project experiment on unknowing civilians by spiking their drinking tap water. All of these residents fell victims to Dwayne's actions and the organization he was working for. When all these residents sought professional help, they all got experimented on even more. Dwayne, aware of his misdeeds, experiences their lives in his own purgatory, which leads us to 2 different endings, depending on whether Dwayne subconsciously forgives himself or not.
What do you want to run from so bad that you drug yourself every day? Do you want to die, Dwayne? I could help you with that, you know. I'm only with you because you have money. It's probably blood money, but I don't care. I don't care about you. If you want to die, I'll happily oblige. Do you want a rope? Want me to kick the bucket? Life would be so much easier without your mopey face around, you delusional f***. Want me to stab you with 7 knives? Want me to rip the jaw off your ugly face? How about I break both your legs and leave you to rot in a cellar? You're a disgrace. People despise you. I despise you. Your children despise you. You're horrifying. You should die.
After watching all of the tape and collecting all of the mirror mask pieces, Dwayne wears the mask which transforms the time into day, which is suggestive of Dwayne not being stuck at the same time anymore, or his purgatory. And then he opens the basement door, which leads him to a bright white screen with his family in the distance, presumably waiting for Dwayne, forgiving him, but most importantly, Dwayne himself forgiving himself and letting himself to be with his family. The credits then roll with a heavenly forest at the background. The question is, why a man such as Dwayne, who was involved in a cruel experiment, causing death and misery on vulnerable people, having such a happy ending? And what was the entire game suggestive of? Wasn't he being punished for what he did? My understanding from the game goes like this. Dwayne was a Catholic average married man who moved into a new house to have a decent American dream life. He was a biochemist scientist whose talents were exploited by an evil organization. Dwayne ends up signing a contract which seems to be a non-disclosure agreement to keep the project a secret. Hence why he doesn't talk to his family about what's going on for about 3 decades.
You don't talk, you don't sleep in the bedroom, you don't get out at all, you just don't care, do you? Why don't you just leave?
Mom.
Why aren't you like that, Dwayne? Talk to me. You used to be so good to us.
Problems soon start after the contract. Dwayne becomes involved in a secretive operation which inflicts pain and suffering on unknowing civilians. Dwayne was one of the scientists who were synthesizing hallucinogenic drugs and mixing them with drinking tap water, under the orders of an organization which in real life was CIA. The drugs cause hundreds of people to die and develop mental disorders, to the point of killing themselves and the loved ones around them. Understanding the pain and mental drama Dwayne alongside his colleagues were bestowing upon people, Dwayne relies heavily on drugs and alcohol to sedate himself, and not being able to talk about it makes him seem like a man unhappy with his marriage and family, causing more pain on his own family. Dwayne then eventually retires. Now unable to live with himself, he proceeds to kill his restrained family and himself. As Dwayne was a religious man, he believed in heaven and hell. As apparent from statues of religious figures, he realizes that he has committed major sins, and due to that, finds himself in a purgatory. In fact, it's a little unclear if the purgatory he is placed in is real, as in what we all will experience depending on whether we committed sins or not, or if it's due to his personal beliefs, making him experience those events. I believe the purgatory he's placed in is due to his own personal beliefs, as everything he experiences is based on what he already knows. All the victims he was a culprit of tormenting, his own misdeeds destroying his family, and being in a purgatory where he has to suffer enough to find redemption due to his own religious beliefs. For this ending, Dwayne has to experience the pain of his victims. He has to also face all of his sins, which are represented in the 7 videotapes. Addiction, which was his addiction to alcohol and drugs. His greed, which was signing the contract involving him in an unethical experiment, maybe for a better pay. His negligence, which showed how he neglected his own health and his family's. His indifference towards his family, driving them mad and causing distance. His pride, which made him feel like an important man in his inhumane lab, with a banner saying that they're changing human lives, as if they're celebrating. Prison tape, which shows how he imprisoned people in their own minds. And finally affliction, which shows how many people died due to spiking the tap water. Only after all those experiences and terror, Dwayne forgives himself in the perspective of his own religious beliefs. The mask is then completed in a room filled with religious figures, and after wearing this mask, absolving his sins, he becomes a new man when he joins his family, who in his own eyes have forgiven him. Therefore, the entire game is Dwayne's subconscious not forgiving himself for his deeds and life choices. As in a dialogue from his wife, we hear that she doesn't forgive him, which in fact is distorted with a man's voice, which is suggestive of Dwayne thinking those.
Do you want to die, Dwayne? I could help you with that, you know. I'm only with you because you have money. It's probably blood money, but I don't care.
Only after being punished for his sins, Dwayne is allowed to join his family and presumably go to heaven. In this ending, Dwayne repeatedly shoots himself with the revolver for 6 times. Each time, he goes back to the room with tiles and the black goo substance, until the 7th time when the gun is empty. He then goes to the bottom of a well, representative of a metaphoric place where all his victims ended, as seen in the Affliction videotape. He then is stuck in this endless well, presumably for eternity. Dwayne experiences this ending if the mask doesn't get completed, and he doesn't wear it. That's because he doesn't suffer enough and doesn't face all of his sins. Each time he dies, he loops back, each death for each sin presumably, until the last time when the gun is empty, and he has to be stuck in an endless well for eternity. Or in other words, being stuck in a hell he built for people back in real world. That's about it for this video. I'm working on another video about the comics entailing the tragic story of the neighbor, Rose. You can stay tuned by hitting the subscribe button and the notification bell not to miss out on it. It's been your host Star. Till the next video, have a fantastic day.